The citadel of Arak-Nor hangs in the cold, unforgiving void of space, orbiting a dead star at the farthest edge of the galaxy. Its vast stone halls echo with centuries of failure, the once imposing structure now standing as a monument to the countless champions who came before, only to be rejected by the armor. The architecture is grand, with towering spires and intricate carvings that tell the stories of ancient warriors. But there is a dark undertone, a sense of loss that permeates every inch of this sacred place. The air is thick with tension, as if the citadel itself is alive, waiting for the next challenger. Visitors to this forsaken world feel the weight of history bearing down on them, a legacy of failed aspirations and shattered dreams. It is here, in this cold and desolate place, that the legend of the armor of Arak-Nor lives on, a symbol of strength, power, and unyielding rejection. Every alien species that dared approach has left with nothing but scars, physical, emotional, or both. The armor, a relic of unimaginable power, lies dormant in its chamber, waiting for someone worthy. But no one has ever been worthy. No one except the armor itself. Kara Miles steps off the transport shuttle onto the cold, rocky surface of Arak-Nor. She is not the eager, hopeful soldier she once was. Her face is weathered, her eyes hollow from the weight of past failures. The mission she failed, the peacekeeping mission that saw her comrades lost and her spirit shattered, still haunts her. She carries the scars of her past, not visible to the eye, but deep within her soul. The ground beneath her feels unfamiliar, the atmosphere thick with the unspoken expectations of the galaxy's great and powerful species. They watch her, waiting for her to fail, to fall into the same trap that claimed every other challenger. Kara's presence here is not one of honor. It is a test, a cruel joke played by the Compact to humiliate humanity. She knows this. And yet, despite the doubts gnawing at her, there is something inside her, a stubborn ember of defiance that refuses to die. Her reputation as a soldier precedes her, but she is not here to win the admiration of her peers. She is here to face the armor, and in doing so, to prove that humanity, her broken, flawed species, has something to offer that the galaxy cannot ignore. The armor of Arak-Nor is no mere artifact. It is a sentient being, an ancient suit of war deer with a consciousness that transcends time. It has rejected every alien champion who has attempted it. Some challengers have been burned alive by its fierce rejection. Others have died from the sheer weight of its indifference. Many have simply vanished, the armor's silent rejection snuffing out their hopes in an instant. The armor is not bound by the rules of species or military rank. It is not a tool of war. It is a protector, a force of nature that seeks only those worthy enough to wield its power. And no one, not a single alien in the history of the galaxy, has ever been deemed worthy. The legends say that the armor's true will is a mystery, one that only the right individual could understand. Its power is unrivaled, and yet it is so fiercely selective that the very idea of anyone wearing it seems laughable. Those who approach the armor are met with its cold, indifferent gaze, a judgment far harsher than any rejection could ever be.
The Compact, the great alliance of over 80 alien species, has never taken humanity seriously. Earth is a young, untested species, and its attempts to join the ranks of the galaxy's elite are seen as naive at best, laughable at worst. Kara's mission to the Citadel is nothing more than a political stunt, a way for the Compact to show the galaxy that humanity is nothing more than a joke. Kara is not here because of her skill, her reputation, or her ability. She is here to fail. The Compact's council has selected her as a symbol, a living, breathing example of the futility of human ambition. They expect her to fail, just like the others. They expect her to walk away, head bowed in shame, after the armor rejects her with the same indifference it has shown every alien before her. The message is clear. Humanity is not worthy of the armor's power. They will never be worthy. Kara steps into the heart of the citadel. The chamber is vast, with high vaulted ceilings that seem to stretch into infinity. The walls are lined with ancient tapestries, each depicting a champion who once tried and failed to claim the armor. Alien species crowd the edges of the room, their eyes fixed on Kara, waiting for her to fall. The atmosphere is thick with a palpable sense of foreboding. The armor is nearby, its presence felt even before it is seen. Kara's footsteps echo in the silence as she approaches it, each step heavier than the last. She feels the eyes of the galaxy upon her, the weight of their doubt pressing down on her shoulders. And yet, as she draws closer, something stirs within her. Despite the humiliation that awaits her, despite the certainty that she will fail, there is a part of her, something deep inside her, that refuses to give up. She has fought for humanity before. She will fight for it again. Kara stands before the armor. The room falls into a deep, unsettling silence. The armor does not move. It does not speak. But Kara feels its presence, a crushing weight that tests every fiber of her being. It is a living, breathing entity, a force of nature that defies understanding. Her hands tremble as she reaches out to touch the armor. She has seen what it has done to others, how it has burned, rejected, and annihilated those who were not worthy. But there is something in her, a spark of defiance, a burning will to prove herself that drives her forward. The armor remains still, unmoving, watching her, waiting. The tension in the room is suffocating. The galaxy is watching. And for the first time in her life, Kara wonders if she truly is worthy. Kara's fingers brush the surface of the armor. There is a strange hum, a vibration that seems to come from within the very core of the suit. The armor's surface pulses as if it is alive, as if it recognizes her touch. For a moment, it feels as though something shifts, something deep inside the armor stirs. It is not a rejection, not yet, but neither is it acceptance. The armor is testing her, probing her very soul to see if she is worthy. Kara realizes then that the armor does not seek strength alone. It seeks something deeper, something that no alien species has ever possessed. It is searching for a spark, a unique trait that no one else has ever offered. For the first time, Kara feels a flicker of hope. Maybe humanity has something the galaxy cannot understand. Maybe they have something the armor can recognize.
Kara stands tall, her heart pounding in her chest. The armor has not rejected her. Not yet. But it is not the armor that has changed. It is humanity. Kara has proven that humanity is not a joke. It is not weak. It is not here to be mocked or dismissed. As the tension builds, Kara knows that this moment, this quiet defiance, could be the first step towards something greater. The armor has rejected 1,000 species before, but humanity is different. Humanity will not be ignored. This is only the beginning. The citadel was as grand as it was imposing, towering over the alien cities that sprawled beneath its cold, unyielding silhouette. Kara walked through the halls, every step echoing with the weight of history. Her heart pounded in her chest, but her face remained an unreadable mask. This was supposed to be humanity's greatest moment, the one that would elevate them from the status of intergalactic joke to a force to be reckoned with. Yet the atmosphere in the room was anything but hopeful. Kara's presence here was nothing more than a formality, a final mockery of humanity's attempts to prove their worth to the galaxy. She stood before the armor, an ancient and sentient relic of unimaginable power, its obsidian surface absorbing all light. Its eerie silence reverberated through the room, a reminder of countless failed attempts by species before her. Alien dignitaries from every corner of the compact watched, their eyes filled with thinly veiled amusement. The ritual was always the same. A human would approach the armor, only to be rejected, their failure adding another layer to the myth that humanity could never truly belong among the stars. The ceremonial chants filled the air,
It was a song of resignation, a hymn for those who had long accepted their place in the cosmos. No one here believed that Kara would be the exception. Kara's hand reached out to touch the cold surface of the armor. As her fingers brushed the smooth black surface, she expected the usual rejection, a brutal, unforgiving expulsion that would remind her and the watching crowd of humanity's place in the galaxy. But then, something shifted. A pulse. It was faint, barely perceptible, but it was there. Kara's breath caught in her throat as a soft hum vibrated through the floor beneath her, the air around her growing charged. The armor, which had been dormant for millennia, was stirring. Her eyes widened in disbelief as the armor shifted slightly, as though it were sensing her. The room fell into stunned silence. The alien dignitaries exchanged glances, their expressions unreadable. Kara's heart raced in her chest, a mix of awe and terror. Could it be? Could humanity finally have found the key to its place in the galaxy? The pulse quickened, growing stronger, more deliberate. The armor was not rejecting her. No, it was reacting. And for the first time in history, humanity was not cast aside as inferior. The armor was responding to her presence. The armor began to move. Slow at first, like a giant awakening from an endless slumber, its surface rippling with energy. Kara felt a surge of heat course through her body thrumming in response to the armor's power. Her hand was still pressed against it, but now it wasn't just the armor she was touching. It was as though the armor itself was reaching back, connecting with her. The room seemed to hold its breath as a low hum filled the air. The connection was not one of ownership. It was a bond, deeper than anything Kara could have imagined. The armor's power flowed into her, and with it came an overwhelming flood of ancient knowledge, instincts, memories, alien thoughts. Not hers, but feeling more familiar with every passing second. The armor was sharing its consciousness with her, and she with it. Kara's mind raced, her body trembling as the weight of this bond settled over her. She had expected failure, rejection, but instead, she had become one with something far older than anything humanity had ever encountered. She wasn't just standing in the presence of a weapon, she was now a part of it.
The silence that had fallen over the room was shattered by the sound of gasps. Whispers turned to shouts as the religious leaders, the ones who had revered the armor as a divine symbol, erupted in outrage. "Blasphemy!" one of them screamed, his voice trembling with fury. "The armor was never meant for humans." The militarists weren't far behind, their voices sharp with fear. "This is a threat. Do you realize what this means? Humanity is now connected to the most powerful force in the galaxy. We can't allow this." Kara felt the weight of their words, the intensity of their fury and fear. They were terrified. Terrified that the armor, a symbol of alien superiority, had chosen a human. They feared what this would mean for their place in the galaxy. Outside, the winds of political upheaval began to stir. The alien dignitaries, who had once mocked humanity, now watched with narrowed eyes, calculating the implications. This wasn't just a rejection of tradition, it was a direct challenge to the galaxy's power structure. Kara's connection to the armor deepened, and with it came the flood of alien memories, thoughts, and instincts. She was no longer just a human in the presence of an ancient relic. She was experiencing the armor's history, its purpose, its battles, its victories and defeats. She could feel the weight of civilizations long gone, their whispers in her mind. The knowledge wasn't just a gift, it was a burden. Ancient voices filled her consciousness, speaking of cosmic wars, of survival against impossible odds. The armor's memories were sharp, vivid, and overwhelming. Kara struggled to maintain control, but the pull of the armor's presence was strong. She could feel her own identity slipping away, as if the armor was becoming more a part of her than she was of herself. It wasn't just a mental connection, it was spiritual, emotional. The armor was with her in every sense, its power and knowledge now intertwined with her very being. She was both Kara and something far greater. The question now was, could she remain herself, or would the armor consume her?
In the midst of the overwhelming flood of knowledge, Kara felt a sudden, sharp shift. A signal, an ancient beacon embedded deep within the armor, had been activated. It wasn't just any signal, it was a call, a distress signal. As the beacon hummed to life, its reach extended far beyond the Citadel, across light years of space. Kara's mind was flooded with visions, distant stars, long-forgotten coordinates, and an approaching darkness. The Ashrith Swarm, a race of terrifying destroyers that had obliterated entire civilizations in their wake. She tried to pull away from the vision, but it was too late. The swarm was on its way. The signal had been sent, and Kara, unknowingly, had just drawn the attention of the most deadly force the galaxy had ever known. Now, more than just a wearer of the armor, Kara had become its interface. She could hear its voice, deep, resonant, and filled with an ancient wisdom. It wasn't just guiding her actions, it was shaping her every move, directing her thoughts, offering warnings, and, occasionally, commanding. The weight of the armor's knowledge pressed down on her. It was too much to bear, and yet she couldn't escape it. She was bound to it now. Her body and mind were stretched to their limits, the armor demanding more and more of her. The line between Kara and the armor was blurring. She was both the keeper of its ancient power and its prisoner. Kara had no choice but to embrace her new role, but the burden was heavy. Every decision she made could affect the fate of the galaxy, and with the swarm approaching, the stakes had never been higher. She was humanity's only hope, or its greatest threat. Now, more than just a wearer of the armor, Kara had become its interface. She could hear its voice, deep, resonant, and filled with an ancient wisdom. It wasn't just guiding her actions, it was shaping her every move, directing her thoughts, offering warnings, and, occasionally, commanding. The weight of the armor's knowledge pressed down on her. It was too much to bear, and yet she couldn't escape it. She was bound to it now. Her body and mind were stretched to their limits, the armor demanding more and more of her. The line between Kara and the armor was blurring. She was both the keeper of its ancient power and its prisoner. Kara had no choice but to embrace her new role, but the burden was heavy. Every decision she made could affect the fate of the galaxy, and with the swarm approaching, the stakes had never been higher. She was humanity's only hope, or its greatest threat.
The news of Kara's bond with the armor spread like wildfire. Across the galaxy, species who had once dismissed humanity as insignificant now looked upon them with new eyes. The armor had chosen a human. What did that mean for the balance of power? Political factions within the compact began to fracture. Alliances were formed, grudges were aired, and old prejudices resurfaced. Humanity, once a footnote in galactic history, was now at the center of a new struggle for power. The armor had changed everything. It had placed humanity at the crossroads of destiny, one that no one, not even the aliens, could have foreseen. The galaxy held its breath. Kara, the human who had been rejected for so long, now stood at the precipice of a new era. What would she do with this power? Would humanity rise to meet the challenge, or would they crumble under the weight of the universe's expectations? The Ashrith Swarm was coming. Kara could feel it in the deepest recesses of her mind, the pulsating signal from the armor acting as a beacon that drew them closer. Destruction followed in the swarm's wake, and they would stop at nothing to reclaim what was once theirs. The Ashrith were an enemy unlike any other, ancient, powerful, and merciless. They would not care that humanity had finally found a place among the stars. They would not care about the armor, about Kara's bond. They would only care about destruction. Kara steeled herself. The war was coming, and humanity had no choice but to fight. Kara stood at the center of the training chamber, sweat trickling down her face, her breath coming in shallow gasps. The armor encased her body, its shimmering metal plating reflecting the dim lights above. It felt alive, pulsating with power that thrummed in time with her heartbeat. But it wasn't just a tool. It was a force, a presence that responded to every flicker of her emotions. She had thought that mastering it would be simple.
But the armor didn't respond to commands. It reacted to her will, her fears, and her desires. Every time Kara tried to take control, the armor seemed to rebel. Her anger sent surges of energy crackling through her limbs, and fear made it retreat, just out of reach. The harder she tried to focus, the more chaotic it became. Her chest tightened as an erratic burst of energy jolted through her arm, nearly throwing her off balance. It was as if the armor could sense her doubt. Each failure fed into the next, and Kara began to wonder if it was she who was broken. How much longer before it destroys me, she thought, her heart pounding? It was a question that lingered just beneath the surface. The armor had no mercy. She forced herself to focus, to push past the anxiety, but it was no use. The armor's power surged again, uncontrollable. For a brief moment, Kara felt like she was losing herself within its depths, her own emotions eclipsed by the power it demanded. It wasn't just about control anymore. It was about survival. Would she be able to master the armor before it consumed her?
When the news broke of Kara's bond with the armor, the galaxy's opinion of her changed in an instant. Humanity, once seen as insignificant, now had a weapon of unimaginable power. But at what cost? The galaxy's leaders watched Kara with suspicion, eyes narrowed in distrust. Some saw her as an abomination, a human who had somehow been chosen by the armor, a force they did not understand. Others whispered that her presence was a violation of the cosmic order, a mistake that would lead to chaos. Kara felt the weight of their stares, the judgments that followed her every step. Every training session, every attempt at control was magnified. She was no longer just a human in a galaxy of many species. She was the galaxy's last hope, a figure whose every failure could bring about disaster. And the pressure of that knowledge gnawed at her, deep in her chest. It wasn't just the fear of the armor's power, it was the fear of herself. What if she wasn't worthy? What if she failed? The isolation she felt was suffocating, her thoughts twisted, plagued by doubts. The galaxy had turned its back on her before she could even prove herself, and now the only voice she could trust was her own. But even that seemed to falter in the face of the overwhelming responsibility thrust upon her. The training sessions had become brutal. Under the watchful eyes of alien commanders and military leaders, Kara was pushed to her limits. Each exercise was designed to test her control over the armor, to force her to break through the wall of uncertainty and command the power that surged through her. But no matter how hard she tried, the armor remained unpredictable, a mirror to her own internal chaos. Kara's hands trembled as she gripped the control module, trying to summon the armor's strength. The more she focused, the more the armor responded in volatile bursts. It wasn't enough to simply survive the trials. It was expected of her to succeed, to be perfect. But perfection was a lie. Each failure felt like a personal failure, a mark on her worth. And the armor seemed to punish her for every weakness. The surges of energy seemed to mock her, taunting her with her own limitations. Her mind raced, a storm of anxiety and fear clouding her thoughts. Could she ever truly control it? Or was she doomed to be overwhelmed, just like those who had wielded the armor before her? As Kara's struggles continued, a new presence entered her life, Yoral San. The ancient insectoid priest had been observing her from the shadows, quietly offering counsel. He believed that Kara's bond with the armor was no mere coincidence. It was fate. The armor had chosen her for a reason, and only she could unlock its true potential. "Do not fear the power, Kara," he said, his voice low and rhythmic, like the hum of a distant storm. "It is not the power that seeks to control you. It is your heart, your will, that must guide it." Kara listened, torn between hope and doubt. Yoral San's words felt like a balm to her fractured soul, but they also reminded her of the immense burden she carried. Could she live up to the expectations of an ancient priest who believed in her fate? Could she bear the weight of being the one to save or destroy the galaxy? Tavox, the proud reptilian warrior, had little use for Kara. He saw her as a symbol of everything his species had failed to achieve. The armor, an ancient and powerful force, had chosen a human, a race that had only recently begun to venture into the stars. Over his own people,
who had fought in countless wars. He resented her, hated her, and yet he had no choice but to work with her. The tension between them was palpable, simmering beneath every interaction. "You don't deserve it," Tavox hissed, his sharp teeth flashing as he glared at Kara. The armor should have chosen a warrior, not a child. Kara's gaze met his, her fists clenched. She could feel the heat of his animosity, but she refused to back down. "I didn't choose this," she replied, her voice steady despite the fire burning within her. "But I'm not going to let anyone stop me from doing what's necessary." The hatred between them was a slow burn, but it was a threat that could ignite at any moment. Tavox's personal vendetta made him a wild card, a danger in a galaxy already teetering on the brink of destruction.
Commander Rom paced the bridge, his eyes darting between the tactical screens. The pressure was building, the fate of humanity hanging in the balance. As the leader of the human delegation, he was tasked with navigating the treacherous waters of intergalactic diplomacy, but his loyalty was torn. Kara was his friend, his comrade, and now she was the galaxy's last hope. Yet he could not ignore the political landscape that shifted with every decision. Each choice he made would either secure humanity's place among the stars or doom them to extinction. "Do you really think she can do this?" an alien advisor asked, her voice tinged with doubt. Rom's gaze hardened. "We don't have a choice." But deep inside, he wondered if they were putting all their faith in someone who might not be able to live up to the weight of the galaxy. The ship shudders as it enters the dying atmosphere of the world known as Valis. Kara stares at the desolate landscape through the reinforced glass of the command deck, her heart heavy with the weight of humanity's last hope. Once a vibrant, thriving planet, Valis is now nothing more than a barren wasteland, the skies poisoned and the ground cracked. The Ashrith have drained the life force of the planet, turning it into a shell of its former self. "We have no time left," Kara mutters under her breath, her voice thick with tension. The crew, divided, nervous, and exhausted, sits in silence. Some of them still cling to the belief that they can win. Others know this might be the final stand. The Ashrith fleet hovers ominously above the planet's surface, their ships gleaming like predators awaiting the final kill. Kara feels the overwhelming responsibility pressed down on her chest. Humanity's future rests on her shoulders. Her mind flashes back to the brutal losses they've endured, and yet this may be the final chance to stop the invasion. The ship descends rapidly, turbulence shaking the crew as they prepare for the landing. Kara grips the armrest of her seat, her knuckles white. "Prepare for impact," she orders. The landing is harsh. The crew jumps into action, quickly securing their weapons and armor, ready for whatever awaits them. As they step out of the ship, the stark reality hits them. The air is thick with dust, and the silence is deafening. Valis, once full of life, now feels like a tomb. The Ashrith are coming. The battle is about to begin. In the dim light of the base, Kara stands before the armor, a massive, ancient suit that has been both her savior and her curse. As she prepares to don it, a strange sensation overwhelms her. Her vision blurs, and suddenly she is not in the base anymore. She stands on a distant world, watching as a warrior wearing the same armor guides an entire civilization, teaching them the ways of peace and justice. The warrior's face is stoic, yet filled with wisdom. The armor is not just a tool of destruction, she realizes. It is a guardian, a judge, and a teacher. It has been used throughout time to guide civilizations toward balance, not just to destroy. The voice of the armor echoes in her mind, calm and wise. "You are not here to be a weapon, Kara. You are here to teach, to make the choice that will change the course of fate. The Ashrith are not your enemies alone. They are your responsibility." Kara gasps as ancient memories flood her mind. She sees countless beings who have wielded the armor before her, some triumphant, others broken, but all forever changed. The realization hits her like a wave. The armor wasn't just created to fight, it was created to heal, to restore, to evolve. Her heart pounds in her chest as she removes her helmet, the weight of this newfound knowledge sinking in.
She's not just a soldier. She is a part of something greater. But does she have the strength to make the right choice? Kara stands alone in the command center, the armor now fully activated, humming with power. The crew waits anxiously, their faces a mixture of fear and resolve. Her mind races, torn between two choices, the destruction of the Ashrith or an attempt to communicate with them. The crew is divided. Half of them want to end it all, to use the full might of the armor and wipe out the Ashrith once and for all. The other half wants to retreat, to find a way to survive and rebuild. Kara's voice shakes as she addresses them. We can't just kill them all. They're not what we think they are. There's a chance, a slim one, that we can stop this without further bloodshed.
Commander, they've killed millions, one of her officers protests. We can't just let them win. Another crew member, her trusted friend, shakes her head. But what if we're wrong? What if there's a way to stop this without more violence? Kara's eyes linger on the holographic map of the Ashrith fleet, poised for their final assault. The decision weighs heavily on her. Destroy or communicate? Can she afford to risk everything on the possibility of peace? Or is it too late for mercy? The battle erupts in a torrent of flashing lights and explosions. The crew is scattered, some engaging the Ashrith head-on, while others retreat to regroup. Kara's heart races as she fights alongside her team, the weight of her decision pressing down on her. The fighting is brutal. Every movement feels like a dance of life and death. The Ashrith are relentless, their energy weapons scorching the landscape. But there is something off in the air, an unmistakable tension within her crew. There are those who fight with blind fury, but others hesitate, their moral compass torn. Commander, one of the officers yells, we need to pull back now or we'll lose everything. But Kara's mind is elsewhere. She is watching the battlefield unfold, the true cost of war settling over her. There is no easy way to win this fight. The Ashrith are powerful, but so are they. And yet, something is missing, a lack of unity. Kara slams her fist on the console. Hold the line, we fight together or we die apart. Her voice rings with authority, but inside, doubt gnaws at her. She is not just leading soldiers, she is leading souls, and her soul is conflicted. In the heart of the chaos, Kara makes a shocking decision. She steps forward, lowering her weapon. The armor rejects her movement, its systems flashing warnings, but Kara ignores them. She's going to do something no one expects. She's going to reach out, not as a warrior, but as a diplomat. She steps into the heart of the battlefield, unarmed, her pulse racing as the Ashrith swarm around her. Their hive brain is captured, writhing in a prison of energy. Kara stands before it, her hand trembling as she activates the armor's translation mode. The voices of the Ashrith flood her mind, their emotions raw and confused. They don't see her as an enemy. They see her as something different. The armor's power pushes against her, but Kara fights back. She must understand them. In a shocking revelation, she glimpses the Ashrith's history. They were once protectors, noble guardians of the galaxy, until a viral infection twisted their minds and turned them into energy-hungry predators. Tears fill her eyes as she realizes the full weight of her responsibility. She is not just fighting a species, she is fighting a tragedy. But is it too late to save them? Kara's mind spins as she connects deeper with the Hivebrain's consciousness. The Ashrith are not monsters, they are victims of a viral weapon that infected them long ago. Once, they were champions of peace, but the virus turned them into mindless killers, driven only by the need to consume. The armor, created to combat this very thing, failed in its mission to prevent this descent. The truth is staggering. The Ashrith were not born evil, they were corrupted. Kara feels the immense weight of this knowledge. Her moral compass is shattered. How can she condemn a species that was once noble? The crew, unaware of her findings, continue their assault, pushing harder against the Ashrith. But Kara cannot join them fully. The battle no longer feels like a fight for survival. It feels like a choice of redemption. She stands at a precipice, knowing that whatever choice she makes, it will shape the galaxy's future.
Kara stands before the armor, her mind a storm of conflicting emotions. She has discovered the truth about the Ashrith, and now she must make a choice that could change the fate of an entire species. She will force the armor to evolve. As the armor hums, Kara channels every ounce of her being into the suit, her mind expanding as she reprograms its core functions. The armor resists, its systems fighting her every step of the way, but Kara refuses to yield. She wills it to change. Her body trembles with the effort, sweat dripping down her face. She pushes herself beyond her limits, drawing on the strength of her ancestors, the warriors who once wielded the armor. The suit begins to hum differently, its deadly power now focused on healing rather than destruction. The transformation is painful, but as the armor shifts, so does Kara's resolve. She will not let the Ashrith die. She will not let the galaxy fall to the cycle of endless war. The armor fights against her will. Kara can feel the weight of its rejection, its ancient purpose screaming for destruction. Her body is pushed to the brink, her muscles aching, and her mind screaming for relief. But she holds on. The crew watches in horror as Kara struggles. The very core of the armor is rejecting her, and yet she holds firm. Through sheer willpower, Kara reaches a breaking point, a moment where she must give everything. Her connection to the armor is no longer just a choice. It is an act of total surrender. The armor tests her. It forces her to make the ultimate sacrifice, not just her body, but her soul. And in that moment, the armor shifts. It listens, it understands. The once unfathomable power of destruction is now a tool for peace. The Ashrith retreat. Their once imposing might falters as the armor's new purpose takes effect. The energy-draining assault that had been relentless now ceases. Kara stands in silence as the battlefield falls quiet. The Ashrith are broken, not destroyed. They withdraw not as a conquering force, but as a broken species, unable to continue their rampage. The war is not over, but for the first time, there is hope. Kara's choice to show mercy will echo across the galaxy. It will be remembered not as a victory, but as a defining moment, a leader's decision to spare what was once thought to be an enemy. But as she looks out across the devastated world, Kara knows this is not the end. It is only the beginning. The galaxy is still on the edge of chaos, and her choice, for better or worse, has opened a door to a future uncertain. The legacy of mercy, of compassion, will be her mark on the universe. The galaxy trembled after Kara's decision. She had spared the Ashrith, a race that had long been enemies of the Compact. A seemingly simple act of mercy, yet it had far-reaching consequences. The political landscape was splintering, divided into factions that viewed Kara's actions with suspicion or reverence. Mercy in a time of war came the sharp, accusing voice of General Drax on the comms, his words cold and biting. Is this what we've become? Weak? This galaxy doesn't need saviors, it needs conquerors. But Kara stood firm. Her decision had been deliberate, not born of weakness, but of hope. Yet hope felt like a fragile thing in a universe where survival often meant annihilation. She could feel the weight of every gaze on her, every word spoken in council meetings, both supportive and condemning. Some whispered that her mercy was a beacon of grace, the light that could unite the stars. Others called it a sign of fragility, a mark of someone unfit to lead. Kara clenched her fists, her eyes narrowing as she stared out at the swirling chaos of stars before her. "I will not let fear dictate my choices," she whispered to herself. But the damage was done. Her leadership was questioned. Even those she thought loyal now whispered in hushed tones about the future of the Compact and her role within it. Is mercy truly weakness? Or is it the strength the galaxy needs? Kara asked herself. She couldn't find an easy answer, but deep down, she knew she was standing on the precipice of something greater than conquest. She was standing on the edge of the galaxy's rebirth.
The armor hung in her quarters, silent, awaiting her touch. Once a cold instrument of war, it now felt alive. The once sterile black surface was now shimmering with iridescent colors that shifted with her every thought. The armor responded to her emotions, its energy pulsing as if it were sentient, aware. She approached it slowly, a hand hovering over its smooth surface. "What are you?" Kara whispered, the weight of its transformation settling on her. The armor was no longer just a weapon. It had become a companion, a reflection of her journey. Each color that now radiated from it symbolized something new within her, a new purpose, a new vision for the future. She could feel the ancient relic responding to her emotions, its glow deepening as she reached out to touch it. The once cold metallic surface now hummed with warmth, alive with energy. The transformation was profound. The armor wasn't just reflecting her growth, it was guiding her. It had become something more than just a tool. It had become a symbol, her symbol. A bond forged in the fires of war, now tempered by the wisdom of mercy. Tavok stood before her, the former general of the Ashrith Empire, now a shadow of his old self. His once proud, unyielding stature seemed diminished. The tension between them had always been thick, but now, in this quiet room, everything had changed. Without a word, Tavox knelt before her, his armored knee hitting the ground with a resonating thud. His gesture of respect was humbling, something Kara had never expected. This wasn't a surrender, this was acknowledgement. He had seen the truth in her actions, even if his people hadn't. "You have changed the course of the galaxy, Kara," Tavox said, his voice low but filled with reverence. "It is not your strength in battle, but your strength in mercy that has made you a leader." Kara felt her chest tighten. She had once fought against this man, battled with all her might to destroy him. Yet here he was, bowing before her. It was an admission of her power, not just in tactics, but in heart. Tavox's eyes met hers, and for the first time, there was no animosity, no war, just a shared understanding. "We stand united now," he continued. "The galaxy needs your leadership. The compact needs you." Kara nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. She had never imagined this moment, but now that it was here, she knew one thing for certain. This was only the beginning. The message had come through just hours before. The compact had invited Kara to lead a new corps, one not built for conquest, but for protection. It was a task far different from the military forces she had once known. No longer would she lead soldiers into battle for domination. This was a mission of peace, of preservation. The galaxy had suffered under the weight of endless wars. Now, it seemed, there was hope for something else. The call to arms was no longer one of destruction, but of guardianship. A coalition of humans and aliens alike, united in their goal to protect the galaxy from new threats. It was a monumental task, one that would stretch her abilities to their limits. Kara sat in the command room, the weight of the universe pressing down on her shoulders. "A guardian, not a conqueror," she muttered to herself. The words felt right, but the responsibility was staggering. She had led warriors, but this was something else entirely. This was about trust, about uniting disparate species under a single banner of peace. She looked up at the holographic map before her, her fingers brushing over the star systems that stretched out before her. "We can do this," she said softly, as if reassuring herself. "We will do this." The galaxy had already seen too much destruction. Now, it was time for a new kind of leader to rise, a leader who could protect, not destroy. As Kara's connection with the armor deepened, something remarkable began to happen. The once solitary bond between Kara and the armor began to shift. The relic no longer responded solely to her. It reached out to others. Aliens, once skeptical of Kara's mercy, now saw the armor's glowing energy as a sign of something more, a symbol of unity. It was no longer just Kara's weapon. The armor was becoming a collective beacon, something all species could rally behind. Its colors no longer reflected just her inner strength, but the hopes of an entire galaxy. It was no longer a weapon of war. It was a symbol of peace.
of unity. Kara stood in front of the armor, the gleam of its energy wrapping around her like a cloak. "This is our future," she whispered. "Together, we can unite." As she spoke, the armor pulsed, its light brighter than before, as if agreeing with her. She knew that the bond it now forged with the galaxy was the key to something greater, something no one could have ever imagined. Alone, Kara sat in the quiet darkness of her quarters. The noise of the world outside was deafening. Delegates from across the galaxy, ambassadors, soldiers, all vying for her attention. Yet here, in the stillness, she was alone with her thoughts. She had come so far, from an outcast soldier to a chosen guardian. Her past, filled with failure and regret, felt like a lifetime ago. But it had shaped her. Every battle, every loss, every painful choice, they had led her to this moment. The armor beside her hummed softly, as if sensing her reflection. "You've changed," she whispered, tracing her fingers across its surface. She had once been a weapon, a soldier with only one purpose, to fight. But now, her purpose was far greater. She was a protector, a leader. She gazed out at the stars, the vastness of the galaxy stretching before her. "I will not fail you," she whispered, a promise to herself and to the galaxy. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in her life, Kara felt ready. The universe was changing, and she was no longer an outsider. She was part of something larger than herself, a force of unity, a force of peace. And her journey was just beginning. Kara stood at the center of the training field, the early morning sun casting long shadows over the vast expanse of the neutral ground. Around her, a diverse group of recruits gathered, human, Ashrith, and an alien child, each representing a piece of the fractured galaxy she had fought so hard to unite. These recruits were not just soldiers, they were symbols of a future that was yet to be written. But the weight of that future pressed on Kara's shoulders like 1,000 suns. She watched as the recruits sized each other up. The human, a young man named Derek, looked eager but uncertain, his hands twitching nervously around the hilt of his training weapon. The Ashrith, Kyle, stood with a proud stance, the tattoos on his face marking him as a warrior, yet his eyes betrayed the skepticism he felt about working alongside the others. And then there was the alien child, Ziri, who was barely old enough to understand the gravity of the situation, yet already carried the weight of her people's hopes for peace. Kara knew her task wasn't just to teach them to fight, it was to teach them to trust each other, to transcend centuries of fear, mistrust, and prejudice. She knew the journey ahead would be fraught with tension and resistance, but there was something in their eyes, a flicker of something beyond hostility, a spark of unity, fragile but real. "Today," Kara began, her voice steady but carrying the weight of her own doubts, "we start something that could change everything, not just for us, but for everyone who looks to the future. I will teach you to fight, yes, but I will also teach you to understand each other. We are not enemies here. We are something greater." She stepped forward, eyes sweeping over each recruit. The silence stretched, thick with the unspoken challenge. How long would this fragile unity last, and what obstacles would they face in the days ahead? The temple stood in the heart of neutral space, its towering spires casting long shadows over the landscape. Inside, the armor rested on a pedestal, its once vibrant metallic surface now gleaming with a soft, almost ethereal glow. The power that had once made it a weapon of unimaginable destruction now seemed dormant, as though it too had become something different, something greater. Kara stood before the armor, her hands clasped behind her back. She felt a connection to it that she couldn't fully explain, a bond forged in battle and sacrifice, now transformed into something else entirely. This was no longer just a tool of war. It had become a symbol of unity, of peace, of hope. The galaxy had feared the armor once, seeing it as a harbinger of domination, but now it was revered, displayed in the sacred space where all races, all factions could come together. The armor's new purpose was a fragile thing. It was both a reminder of past wars and a beacon of what could be.
But Kara knew the truth. Its true potential had not been fully realized. What secrets had been hidden by its creators? What dangers lay dormant within its vast unknown history? The answers were buried deep within its design, waiting to be uncovered. Kara's thoughts were interrupted by a sudden, vivid flash, a vision, sharp and unrelenting. It came to her through the armor, as though it had somehow pierced the veil between the present and the future. The vision was fleeting, but its message was clear. In it, a shadowed figure stood at the edge of the galaxy, gazing out into the abyss. There was an emptiness there, a void that seemed to call to something darker, more powerful than anything they had faced before. The figure's face was obscured, but its intent was unmistakable. The galaxy's fragile peace was about to be shattered. Kara's breath caught in her chest as the vision faded, leaving her with a chilling sense of dread. Her fingers clenched around the edge of the armor's pedestal. There was something out there, beyond the edge of the known universe, and it was coming. She could feel it in her bones. The armor had not just been a weapon, it had been a warning. But what was it warning them against? The days that followed were filled with training, strategy meetings, and a growing sense of urgency. Kara couldn't shake the vision, the image of the figure standing at the galaxy's edge, watching. She knew the war had ended, but a new battle was coming, one that would test not just her leadership, but the very foundations of the galaxy's unity. Kara walked through the training facility, her mind racing with thoughts of the future. The recruits, her recruits, had come so far, yet they were still untested. The galaxy was still healing from the scars of war, but how long could peace truly last? How long before the darkness beyond the edge of the galaxy reached out to claim them? She stopped before the group, her expression hardening as she looked into their eyes. These were the future of the galaxy. They were the ones who would decide if the fragile peace could survive, or if it would crumble under the weight of old fears. "We'll be ready," Kara said, her voice calm but full of resolve. "Whatever comes, we will be ready. You have a responsibility now, not just to yourselves, but to everyone who believes in this future. We've fought for this moment, and we will fight to keep it, together." Her words lingered in the air, charged with the weight of their meaning. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew this. She would stand at the forefront, leading these recruits into whatever darkness lay ahead. Together, they would face it, and they would prevail.